So here we are once again looking at the housing options for consumers. Great article in the Deseret News that says, can anyone afford to live in America anymore? It's just a pretty sobering question, and we've talked about it before in many surface level conversations. It may not appear that it's possible to have a home for a reasonable price. The average or median price for a home is over $400,000 at current interest rates with tax and insurance. That's going to put you at a mortgage payment of $4,000 to $5,000 a month. That may be out of reach for a lot of people. Rents have now skyrocketed. For a decent apartment in a lot of places, you're going to spend $2,500, $3,000 a month. So the question, can anyone afford to live in America, is legitimate. But let's show you why it may not be true. If you look a little deeper, what options consumers have to actually get into a home that you can own for a reasonable price. The article goes on to say that this person that they use as an example, Britta Joslin, makes $83,000 a year and was having a tough time renting an apartment. Why would you have a tough time renting an apartment with $83,000? Look, it's not millionaire status, but it's a decent amount of money because landlords were asking her to prove she made triple the cost of the rent. So let's take a look at that. Let's do some math on this calculator. We're going to take $83,000 and we're going to multiply that times 0.75 because that's going to be roughly your tax percentage. That gives you $62,250 take home pay if you have 25% taxes. And look, $83,000 with deductions, you may actually pay less taxes than 25%, depends on what state you're in. But let's say $62,000. And if you divide that by 12 months, that gives you $5,187 a month. So if landlords want a third of that to go for your rent, divided by 3, that gives you $1,700 a month. It's borderline. There's some cities where you can't rent a decent apartment for $1,700 a month, especially if you have, 1 or 2 children. You might be over $2,000. So finding something for $1,700 legitimately might be tough. So that math, even though on the surface it doesn't, it seems like it's unreasonable, it makes sense. This article goes on to say that median wage earners in 97% of counties, home prices are now out of reach. So let's look at that math. Here is the famous Google mortgage calculator. Coincidentally, if you just put in Google's mortgage calculator, it gives you a pre-filled in series of numbers. It puts in a loan amount of $240, 30-year fixed at 7.8%. It gives you a monthly payment of $1,739. It's very coincidental that that matches up with the income of that example. Totally coincidence. It's not anything that connects the dots. So what does that tell you? If you are a person that makes $83,000 and you want to have your mortgage payment be a third of your house, you need to finance $240,000. So if you have, let's say, a 10% down payment on let's say a 280 or 290 house, that gives you $240. So you need to be looking at a house that's under $300,000. The problem is, a lot of times people don't want to buy a house that's under $300,000 or $250 or $260 because it doesn't seem like that great of a house. Most people are looking for that dream house that has all the amenities and it's $400,000 or $500,000 or even $360,000 or $370,000. And you're right. If you're on an income under $100,000 and you're looking at a house that is, $350,000 or $400,000. First of all, you may not qualify under the income requirements of a lender, but you also might not like the house because it's not going to be good enough. What we recommend doing is, if you find a house that's livable, that's in the twos, and you can get a monthly mortgage payment that is under $2,000, $1,500, $1,800, go ahead and buy the house. Even if it needs some cosmetic things, make sure you get a good inspection to make sure there's nothing structural or major expenses like a roof or a foundation or air conditioning system. Look, if it needs paint or carpet or moldings or landscape, those are things you can do yourself on weekends. It's not going to be fun. You'd rather kind of enjoy yourself on weekends, but it's a way you can lock yourself into a fixed monthly payment, owning a home with equity rather than paying rent to a landlord. The trade-off and sacrifice is you're not going to be living in a property that's maybe as nice and shiny and new as an apartment. Look, even some apartments that you rent from a landlord, they make them at least look good. New paint, new carpet, new appliances, decent countertops. So it's at least shiny and new. So if your friends come over, they at least see something that's newer. An older home that's got a few dings and dents may not be as impressive to your friends and relatives, but it will be impressive to your financial statement. Down the road, especially. In 5 years, if you get a mortgage for $1,739, in 5 years your payment is still going to be $1,739. If you rent an apartment for $1,700, in 5 years your rent is probably going to be $2,200 or more, because it's going to go up. And there's no guarantee that 1 year your landlord could say, I don't want to renew your lease because we're going to redo the building or we're going to sell it as condos. Where if you own a home, you don't have a landlord that can kick you out. So trading a day-to-day, maybe looking at old carpet or paint or, dirty lawn or whatever it is something that will give you financial advantage down the road. It's not necessarily true that nobody in America can afford a home. It's true that you may not be able to afford the home that you think you want, but you might be able to afford a home that you could live with and put you in a better financial position 5 years later. Maybe you can flip up to a newer home with your equity.